Welcome to the fifth episode of Analyst Hour. I'm here accompanied with Michael Goldsmith. I'm Andrew Regan, and a quick disclaimer for those who are constantly refreshing their YouTube feed or the Instagram for any sort of indication when you'd get this episode. I must confess that Michael and I did record an episode earlier this week. However, when I had to download it onto my laptop, the file fried or something. I'm not super techie, but we lost it. So well, this is a redo, a little nice morning episode. So a good Saturday morning episode. So we're gonna have to do a deep dive back into last week. Hopefully it's still relevant, but we'll do that. So Michael, we just witnessed two sweeps, not one, but two sweeps in the conference finals. Unfortunately, I can't really speak on the Western Conference finals between Funky Monkeys and Mateys because I was either strategizing with my team or sulking after we lost. So I did not get any good. Unfortunately, I didn't get to really view the action like you did. So I would love for you to analyze that series for us.
Yeah, and well, as much credit as the Funky Monkeys and Steven Shaw deserve, I mean, they were dominant. Steven was that was up there with his best performances, obviously, beside his ASL final last year. But
And 19-point
I think
outing,
the Mateys really beat themselves that series. You know, we talked about on the pod before that their shot selection had been killer during their 1-5 start. Like, it was the detriment of their team, and they felt once the Funky Monkeys came out hot, you know, they were on fire, and it really forced the Mateys into their old bad habits of just hucking up threes. And I mean, I know both Matt and Ian are capable of hitting a three, but at the end of the day, their strengths are in their paint game and their finishing and their driving, and not just shooting constant threes. So at the end of the day, they should have diversified their attack more, and it really cost them. You have to give all the credit in the world to Steven Shaw and the Funky Monkeys for doing their thing. And yeah.
Yeah. No, that was a great analysis. Like I said, I couldn't really watch it, but I believe that. The Funky Monkeys are a good team. I've always said they're a well-oiled machine, with or without Steven Shaw. So I'm assuming they brought their A game. And unfortunately, actually, the Mateys earned a fan in you last week. You ended up taking them in 3 for this series. Are you jumping ship on the Mateys? Now are you done with them? Now that they're out, but
Yeah, I mean, do I regret taking them? Yes, because I wouldn't have regretted taking them if they had actually played like they had the past 2 weeks when they were building momentum and when they advanced to the conference finals. But at the end of the day, yeah, the fact that they reverted to their old habits that had clearly cost them during the season. I mean, you look at you look at the lineup, that is not a 2-5 lineup, but because of their shot selection for the most part, they were 2-5. They turned it on for the playoffs, upset Pegasus by most consensus, and then yeah, you know, just the fact that they really went back to those old habits is very disheartening as a fan.
I'm gonna ask you as a Mateys fan. I'm gonna ask you a bit. I'm gonna ask you a bit of a cheeky question. So the first episode we talked about how this season was so important to legacy, so important. You know, if we have a first repeating captain champion, and now that the only possibility would be Steven Shaw, shocker.
Yeah.
Or even if Connor Fu ended up winning it all, we said that would really boost his legacy. Does this loss impact Ian and Matt Shurick's legacy? And while you're on the topic, I would love for you to touch upon Ryan Cadigan's legacy. It's also his birthday today, so happy birthday, Ryan Cadigan.
Happy birthday, Cap.
We've had 3. Matt Shurick obviously isn't a captain this year, but I think he will always be revered as a captain. He will always be viewed as a captain. So with those 3 players, how does that impact their legacy? Matt Shurick, Ian Chowdhury, and oh my God, Connor Fu getting eliminated in the first round. So how does that affect their legacy? All 4.
All right, so I'll go into them. I'll group Ian and Matt together. I know it's not the most exciting answer. I don't think this season really has any impact, positive or negative, on their legacy. Like, if they had lost to Pegasus, it would have been a huge hit to both of them. But the fact that they made it to the conference finals, they really turned their season around. You know, they lost to Steven Shaw. Who can blame them? At the end of the day, this obviously doesn't help either their cause, and especially because they have each other on that team and they still weren't able to execute at the end of the day. It's not a great look, but I don't think you can really say it truly tarnished either of their legacy. because
Yeah,
they won a playoff series, that's more than most teams did, So
I completely
and
agree.
it's
I'm
the
glad.
toughest season. It's the toughest season ever too.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that because I completely agree. If Ian and Matt were have to been to lose to Pegasus in that first round, I absolutely said it would have tarnished their legacy. But I mean, to lose against Steven Shaw in the Eastern or the Western Conference Finals, like that's just bad luck that he wasn't in the other conference. So I definitely don't
Yeah.
think it tarnishes either of their legacies. Same with like Colin. Like if you make it to the conference finals, like it's not the end of the world. It definitely doesn't hurt your legacy. But I guess
I
so. Those
well,
conference finals.
I think you should. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you continue with their point. I'm sorry.
I'll wrap it up quick. I think like if you make it to the conference finals, regardless of how that goes, it can only your legacy can only be helped. It can't get tarnished.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
however, I think we need to look in at Connor Fu a bit and Ryan Cadigan. What do you think?
Well, what
Is
I
like?
was gonna say, I think you should handle Ryan because I'm obviously incredibly biased and I can break down my thoughts on Connor Fu.
Okay. So just quickly, no, I don't think Ryan's legacy is tarnished. I don't know if we touched on this either the first go at this episode or last episode. So if I may be repeating myself, um, he made a good move. He totally made a hit drafting Nick Zelanskis, but it's no surprise he was willing to compromise the depth of his team in order to acquire Nick Zelanskis. And unfortunately, there was a series of unfortunate events which ended up taking, he kind of put most of his eggs in Nick Zelanskis' basket. Um, I don't think it tarnishes his legacy at all because I think if Nick Zelanskis were to play the rest of that season, I think there's a good shot Swarm would be in the playoffs. Um, there's a good shot they could have taken Stampede out of the playoffs. So that's crazy to think because I know Stampede wouldn't have had the tiebreaker had the Swarm finished out their season the way they did. So I don't think it tarnishes legacy. I think it was just a series of unfortunate events. So I'll leave it at that. You can go ahead at Connor Fu, take a stab at him.
I hate to say it, but I do think Connor Fu's legacy was tarnished the most out of anyone this season. I mean, we were talking about him. If he had won the finals, he would have been the GOAT in our eyes. So he definitely did. He should take some heat for losing the first round. I mean, he didn't get much help out there. Or not that his teammates played bad, but they were very passive, and the shot selection wasn't great either. But at the end of the day, I mean, Connor Fu, yeah, you gotta if you're an MVP, you're a depoy, you already have a legacy stapled, so his standard is
He's
already
also the
pretty
front
high.
run. He's also the front runner for the most improved.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, well, I think. Well, what I'm saying, it's kind of in a way a compliment because he had already set a pretty high standard for himself in his play, and he was not himself at all when it mattered the most. And I think that absolutely should take a hit at his legacy, and especially the fact that this season was way more important than any of the seasons before. I think we'd agreed on that before, so on this pod. So yeah, I do think. I mean, he's definitely still up there, but I don't know if he's still going to remain on or actually he wasn't, but I don't even know if he shouldn't even be in consideration for anyone's Mount Rushmore after getting swept getting swept in the first round of the playoffs.
Wow. I mean, does it soften the blow a bit that he may have gotten swept to the future ASL champions?
I mean, I guess that depends. If they beat the Funky Monkeys, yes. I think that would soften the blow. But as of right now, and I know they beat you guys. You guys were 6-1. They are the
They're
Stampede.
a legit team.
You can't like that. This is not me saying, oh, they should have walked over the Stampede, but you gotta at least. It also would be one thing if Connor shot the lights out and just didn't get the help he needed, and that's why he lost. But he just wasn't himself, and that does. If you're not yourself when it matters the most, yes, that does reflect bad in your legacy.
Okay. We'll move over to the Eastern Conference Finals just because we touched upon it. And for those of you wondering, the Stampede did sweep the first seed Super Pandas. Um, I could definitely commentate on it with a little bit more energy today as we are further removed from the loss. Whereas when we first filmed, it was, I believe, Monday, so it was either the day after. So unfortunately, my opinions won't be as fresh. But I could definitely commentate it
Moved
with a
on in
bit
the stages of
more,
grief.
bit more lighthearted. Yeah, I'm done with. I've gone 1 through 7 of my stages of grief, or is it 5? Whatever. Yeah. So Stampede, we've always said, and same with the Super Pandas huddle, that we never viewed the Stampede as a weak team. We've always said on here they're very well rounded and a versatile team, both offensively and defensively. We knew they were going to bring their A game. We were confident going into the series, and when I say confident, that was not a stab at the Stampede. That was more so we have faith in ourselves. But before going into that series, we were the only team in the ASL to beat them while Costa was on the floor. So we definitely had that in our corner. But unfortunately, that's not how it ended up going. They played a great game. They did a great job beating us on the boards. And at the end of the day, they put the ball in the hoop more times than we could, and they created those opportunities. And they had a incredible size advantage on us, and they did a great job exercising that and using that to the best of their advantage. So hats off to them. They played an incredible game, and the overall analysis and in summation would be they identified their strengths and their fortes, and they played into that more than we did, and they deserved that win 100%. And I can confidently say, as much as I would love, I bleed green. I'm a Super Panda for life. Um, we weren't the better team at the end of the day. And if you can't show, like you said about Connor Fu, if you can't show up in the most important time, you don't deserve to be there. So as much as it pains me to admit, the two best teams really are standing in the finals that we're going to face off tomorrow. So I'm really excited for that bout. I'll hand over the mic for you if you want to give your analysis on the Eastern Conference Finals.
Rather than my analysis, I just have a question. And I know you're not the captain of the team, but as a viewer, and I wasn't the only one who felt this way, a lot of people thought that Ian should have gotten more minutes in that game. And I know Arvin played good defense overall. I know Dan hit that shot in his mouth. We all saw that. But I think Arvin generally played good defense, but his offense was not good at all. It was arguably his second worst game of the season besides the first week. And Ian went out there. He was in the right spots. He was cutting to the basket. He was making space in the corner. And as a viewer, I thought that having Ian out there might have benefited your team more. As I said, it's really comes down to Colin's decision. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on Arvin or on Ian's lack of minutes, really. And it's not like he got snubbed. It's not like he got there's other teams that have kind of snubbed their fourth man a little bit. But I don't think that's what happened, but I'm just curious what the thought process was of not increasing Ian's role when he could have made more of an impact.
Yeah, so before I touch on the Ian thing, I do want to touch on the Arvin thing. Yeah, I think even Arvin would admit it wasn't his best performance out there, especially Arvin has been great this year, and because of that, he's really earned a big role. So especially when we have our big series like that, we expect him to fulfill that role. And his shots weren't falling, but I can tell you from being in the huddle and also genuinely speaking, none of us are going to beat our players up, whether it be Colin, myself, Ian, or Arvin, on if their shots aren't falling. It's just a matter of if you're taking a good shot. We've said since day one, we're never going to complain. We're never going to get mad at you if your shots aren't falling. However, the criticism's going to start coming when you're taking bad shots. So I want to clear Arvin's name in the sense that myself, Ian, or Colin, none of us were upset when his shots weren't falling because he wasn't hucking up desperate shots. They weren't covered. Like I thought he took smart shots and they just weren't falling. I didn't shoot the best. My role doesn't really entitle me to a ton of shots. So my mentality is, Andrew, like you're the point guard, you distribute. But when you take your 2 to 4 shots a game, like you got to hit them. And unfortunately, mine weren't really falling either. I don't regret any of the shots I was taking, but at the end of the day, they didn't fall. So none of us were mad at Arvin for that. I disagree when it comes to the defensive thing. I don't think we all agree that we wanted Arvin to take away those rebounds from Cole, and no fault of his own. Unfortunately, he couldn't do that. There was, like, as I said, there's a major size difference. There was a lot of miscommunications on all of us on the defensive end as well, which definitely ended up costing some points. So I definitely want to clear Arvin's name on the offensive end. None of us were complaining. None of us were critiquing Arvin's offensive play because the shots he were taking, I would hope he would take 10 out of 10 times. And if they don't fall, they don't fall. That's the best you could do. So, and then on defensively, we all struggled defensively. It wasn't just him. And there was also a lot of miscommunications defensively as well. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Just we're all to blame, not just Arvin. We're a team. We are the Super Pandas, and we will
Yes.
always be.
Yeah, I wasn't
What's
blaming
your
Arvin for your
question?
entire loss. Yeah.
I think there was our goal was you want to have your fourth man out there at the same time. So we wanted a match whenever Dan was out there. We wanted to put Ian out there as well. Um, if I remember correctly, there was a point in time where Arvin wanted to keep Ian on the bench, not to keep Ian on the bench, but he wanted to still play, which in result would keep Ian on the bench. When
Mhm.
Dan came in, we saw the carnage that unfolded during that matchup. So and again in result, Arvin then wanted a rest, so he wanted to hit the bench and put Ian on. But in that time, Dan also was put on the bench, and now we had Ian on Cole, which is a mismatch. So again, it was just miscommunication right there. I think you summed it up well. I'm not the captain. I never had the final say. I would also never go in Colin's ear and say, "Hey, do this, do that, do that." I chirp enough. I'm kind of like the Marcus Smart. I bitch everyone around without being able to do it myself enough. So I got to pick my battles.
Mhm.
So I don't really know. I would love to see Ian out. Ian really deserved the minutes. He really did. He's been putting in so much work on and off the court, but it is what it is. And like I said, I wouldn't change a single thing. It was a great year, and we're all to blame. And yeah, I guess we'll leave it at that. I hope that
Yep.
answered your question. And
No, that yeah, that
I
I think
know I
that's a
wrote an
very
essay when it was a short answer question, but
yeah.
um, yeah, I hope that covers it. Now we will transition into the biggest ASL championship we are ever going to witness. That takes place tomorrow at 5. Be there early. It's going to be electric. We have the Funky Monkeys. It's one game to 21. So we have the Funky Monkeys and we have the Stampede. Michael, what do you think?
All right. Well, first of all, full transparency. I do apologize to the team that I'm picking because currently I'm 0-4. My picks. But I'm feeling pretty good about my pick this week. I think the Stampede are the more complete team. I think they're the better defensive team. I think the no one wants it no one wants it as bad as Nick Silva and Colt Chingris. There's no disputing that. I bet against Steven Shaw last week. I looked like an idiot. And granted, you got to remember the Funky Monkeys are not just Steven Shaw. Like Pat, I know again, Pete Stylos is out with an injury, so prayers for Pete. But Pat and AJ, they complement him so well, and they complement each other so well too. Like Pat, the point guard, the ball handler, driving, kicking, even his shots
Yeah,
improved.
he's
And
finding himself
AJ,
offensively too.
yeah, oh, absolutely. And then you have AJ, most improved player, our nominee, screen
For
setter,
those
big, like kind
conspiracy
of
theorists,
a
no, no
body in
one
the
knows who
paint.
won the most improved. Michael didn't
Yeah,
reveal anything. We haven't even
no,
checked
yeah,
the most.
yeah, yep. And I'm not a commissioner, so yeah. So AJ, screen setter, body in the paint, off, and so I want to clarify: the Funky Monkeys are more than just Steven Shaw, but I bet against Steven Shaw and I looked like a fool, and I'm not going to do it again. And for that reason, I'm going to say 21-16 Funky Monkeys.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think you summed that up well. Stampede's a very full team. However, well, actually not however. I believe Nick Silva has played competitive basketball, and as we've discussed on this podcast before, there is such an obvious difference between a player who's played basketball competitively versus someone who plays street ball frequently. And
Mm-hmm.
I use myself and Alex Pisacreta during an episode where Alex Pisacreta just torched me. I to this day I've never been torched like that in a street ball game. But there is just such a difference between someone who has played it competitively, and I could be wrong. I believe despite Nick Silva has played it competitively, I think Steven has played at a higher level. Please someone fact check me on that. And I mean, we
It's a
saw
fair
last year
assumption.
that Steven can drop 19 points in a championship game by himself. It didn't matter if he was alone out there. He still dropped 19 points by himself. Now, I think he's gonna have a tougher time with Nick Silva guarding him. I think Nick Silva is relentless on defense, absolutely relentless. And again, they have that size advantage with Costa and Cole Chingris. They're overall a bigger team, and Stampede is overall a bigger team. I I don't want to. I'm picking Steven Shaw and the Funky Monkeys. Let me get that out there. But I don't think it's easy just to default to them because the Stampede deserve to be there. And if they end up winning this thing, no one deserves a trophy more than Cole and Nick. I mean, they have showed up every week. They have been dealing. I started off 0-3. They've had different subs play alongside them. I mean, and these guys just kept their head down and worked. And if they win this, no one deserves it more than them. No one deserves to be there more than them either. I mean, they have showed up every week. You haven't really heard a word from them. No complaints. They just play. So I have nothing but respect for them. And honestly, if they were playing any other team, I would take them in a heartbeat. But you're playing against the ASL legend himself. Like it's 19 points in a championship game is not
Yeah,
easy. It
unbelievable.
made it look easy. So again, you'd feel like an idiot for batting against Stephen Shaw, like you mentioned. So again, I will go 21. I'll say 21-14. And the only reason I say that is because it's make it take it. And that's really what does a lot of teams in. If you need to get that stop, I mean, Stephen Shaw could shoot the ball 11 times, and that's the game. He only needs to shoot the
Mhm.
ball 11 times, and that's the game.
Yeah.
So that 14, and honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if it was 21-6, to be honest, because they might need Stephen Shaw and the Funky Monkeys are good enough where they might only need 2 possessions to win this basketball game. Obviously, that's very unlikely, but he showed us last time that it's not out of reach. So we'll focus on this now. What do the Stampede need to do to beat the Funky Monkeys?
I mean, Nick Silva needs to have the defensive outing of his life. I think a key for them is what you're gonna get from Nick, Costa, and Dan at the offensive end. I think if Cole can step up on offense, because his role is not to be an offensive player. He's a top 3 defender in the league. He's a rebounder. He's kind of, not to be disrespectful here, but he's kind of a slightly better version of AJ, in my opinion. And
At
I
what
think
offense or defense,
I
or just
think in general, I think they're very similar. I just think Cole's a bigger and better version. And I think if Cole can get, let's say, 5 points, that might be enough to put him over the edge because Costa's gonna get his points. Nick's gonna get his points. Dan's gonna hit some shots. I mean, if Cole can chip in at the offensive end, that changes everything. And obviously with Costa and Dan, they just need to hit their shots, and shots can be make or miss. Obviously, it's not a crazy take, but really, yeah, just as I said, Nick just needs to be, not that he won't, not that I doubt he will, but he needs to just be incredibly locked in on Steven Shaw. And really, yeah, if you can get that additional offense from Cole, that changes everything for them.
I guess I have a similar stance, but not with Cole. I think Cole needs to do what he does. I don't think Cole really needs to change his game. He's been such a consistent guy. I don't really think they need him to step up, but obviously he can't fall off. However, I think Costa needs to exercise that size advantage he has on Pat a lot. I think, I mean, it's no surprise Costa is the main offensive output on this team. And I think he needs to run circles around Pat. Pat is an incredible athlete, but he's obviously smaller
Good
than Costa,
defender.
and he is a good defender. Yeah, but I think Costa needs to, he needs to hit a few extra shots this game. I think he needs to pull that three the second he gets the opportunity, or he's super shifty inside and definitely do that. And he needs to be aware when driving to the paint who's in there, because if it's an empty paint and it's just Pat standing in his way, he should be able to put up a few good shots on Pat. Um, and Pat's a great defender and he's an incredible athlete, so he's definitely going to be able to hold his own. But that is really, in my eyes, probably the most extreme advantage one team has over the other, besides Steven and scoring on that team. But Costa has a big size advantage on Pat. So not only can he put in a few extra points this game on them, but also if you can just get ruffle the Funky Monkeys feathers a bit, if Stampede comes out in a hot start, whether it be through Costa, Cole, or Nick Silva, I mean, this is what we talked about with Pisacreta, Connor Fu, and even kind of happened with Colin last game. Like, because these teams are so good, they've spoiled themselves. So if they're not getting what they want, they don't really know what to do. And I think you could do that to the Funky Monkeys, where if Steven Shots weren't as fallen as he wants him to, and Nick Silva's absolutely smothering him on defense, and then in return the Stampede's offense starts rolling, that's going to ruffle their feathers. And if you can take away a bit of their game, not only defensively, but also mentally, that's going to add up, and that's going to pay dividends for the Stampede. At the end of the day, I have to take the Funky Monkey because Steven hasn't lost this year when he's out there. He hasn't. His team has only lost when he's not there. So, and he's also going for the back-to-back championship, but I'll leave it at that. So you said 21-16 Stampede. I'm saying 21-14. Is there any chance Stampede wins?
Yeah, I think I think I'm higher on the Stampede's chances winning than you. I don't see if the Stampede score less than 12 points, I'll be shocked, to be honest. I do not see a 21-6 game. If I'm making like a BPI, I'd say like 80-20 realistically. But I mean, yeah, we've seen what that team they're also something we have to keep in mind. If this game stretches out, let's say Steve Shaw's not hitting his shots, and let's say the Stampede aren't having a good offensive game either. Fatigue is going to wear out the Funky Monkeys, where the Stampede have 4 men. And and not only that, they have the best 4th man in the league, just on top of that. So if the game exceeds like 40 minutes, I think that plays heavily in the Stampede's favor. And I'd honestly, if the game goes above like 40 to 45 minutes, I think the Stampede will win the game. But
really?
Yes, I think that 4th man factor, the fatigue factor, the Funky Monkeys have 3 athletes, but I looked at the weather. It's projected to be 95 degrees out there tomorrow. So, no athlete can just brush that off. And the only way to do that is resting. And when you can pull players, when you can put your 4th man in and not have a significant drop off and get your stars rest, that is just such a key. So if the game goes long, I do see the Stampede having the edge, but I don't see it going very long.
Here's my thing with the Stampede. First of all, yes, I'm pretty high on the Stampede too. I mean, they just swept me in the conference final. So if they can't earn my respect there, they're never going to earn my respect. But they earn my respect 100%. We've always respected the Stampede. Yeah. It's just Stephen Shaw. It's not them. It's not them. It's Stephen Shaw. Yeah. I mean, I disagree. I think if it goes longer, I think that's going to favor someone who's played basketball competitively. I don't, again.
So has Nick Silva, not to the same level, obviously.
Yeah. But I mean, we've had Stephen Shaw predict his out. Like he's predicted the games he's going to play the day before. And I mean, the guy's an ASL untouchable. But the Stampede, what they can't, like, they are so capable of winning this game. They're the best. They are the ASL's best hopes of getting a new
dethroning.
Win. Yes, of dethroning. So they 100% deserve to be there. And I guess I'll sum it up like this, because I'm running around in circles in my head. They are the best team to be there. However, they have less avenues to win. They have only like 3 game plans they need to execute to win this game, where the Funky Monkeys could play 8 different ways, 9 different ways, 10 different ways. They can tap into 10 of their strengths or 12 of their strengths and still win. In summary of that analysis, on top of that, Stampede has to play the best game they've ever played to beat the Funky Monkeys like average. Like if Funky Monkeys go out there and play the way they've been playing, they're fine. They're fine. They're going to do well. It's Stephen Shaw. But if you take away Stephen Shaw's shot, I don't think Pat and AJ can. Obviously, they can't do it by themselves.
Also, wait, one thing I want to add. If you take away Stephen Shaw's shot, it's not even a criticism of Stephen Shaw during the last series, because he was draining all the shots. But if he's not hitting his shots and he has to be aggressive, we haven't really seen him have to drive on that ankle. So,
yeah,
I don't know if that's gonna have to, because again, last series he was just draining his threes. He didn't have to resort to driving. And in the regular season game, he also was just pulling threes. He hasn't really and you can't fault him for not going 100% of his ankle in the
Yeah.
ASL. But if who knows? I mean, if they're not falling, how mobile how is that ankle do it? Will it hold
Yeah.
up? Will he be able to drive the same? Because that's a huge facet of his game.
I have 100%
Opinion.
faith in Nick Silva of covering Steven Shaw. I have 100% faith in him. However, I just think they need to play a near perfect offensive game when they have when Stampede has that possession to win the game, and I don't know if they're gonna have to do that. Like I said, it's make it take it. So especially against the Funky Monkeys, you're gonna have to make the best out of your possessions, and you need to score at least 3 or 4 points every time you get that ball before you have a missed shot. Luckily, they have, in my eyes, the best offensive rebounder in the league in Cole, but you can't put all the possessions on Cole's head. You can't do that. So they need to hold on to every offensive possession they can get. They need to make the most of it. Like I said, it might be a. I wouldn't be surprised if the Funky Monkeys, like I said, 21-6 the Stampede, and that's no fault of the Stampede. That just could be Steven Shaw going off, and Stampede never really has an opportunity to touch that ball like the Teeny Weenies did to Caddyshack last year.
Mm-hmm.
Caddyshack didn't play a bad game. They didn't play a good game. Who knows how they would have played? Because they never got the ball.
Yeah,
So,
really had
like,
any possessions. Yeah,
so if Stephen Shaw has the capability of playing so good, it is out of the Stampede's reach. And that's what they need to be aware of when they're out there. When you get that ball, because they'll get a touch, you need to hold on to that ball like it is a baby. You need to take care of that ball. No turnovers. There's no shot clock. Take advantage of that. Take
yeah.
the
Play
best
it
shot.
slow.
Wait till you get the most open shot. I have full faith in the Stampede. I don't even know why. I would feel proud watching them win. I would feel so proud of them. I mean, that would be crazy. Not only were they the biggest underdogs coming in the year, 3 weeks into the year, everyone had respect for them. But when they're 0 for 3 and they had filtering subs going in, it was just 2 out of their 4 players showing up. Yeah, they were definitely viewed as the underdogs. I mean, they haven't lost since June. This is the team to beat them. This is the team that can actually dethrone Stephen Shaw. Like I said, they have less avenues of winning than Stephen Shaw and the Funky Monkeys do. But if they, go balls to the wall, pedal to the metal down one of those avenues and just play a great game, they have to play a perfect game to win this. But they are the team that is most well equipped to do so. Like I said, hold on to that possession when you get it. You need to, every time you get that ball, you probably need to score 3 or 4 times before you miss a shot or turn it over. There's not you don't have many lives in this game against Stephen Shaw and the Funky Monkeys. You don't have a lot of opportunities to mess up, and you don't have a lot of second chances. So luckily they have someone like Cole who can hold on to those offensive possessions when you miss a shot, but you can't miss many shots against that team because Stephen Shaw can pull it from half court. He can pull it from, 3 feet out or 300 feet out. That ball is a good shot at going in. So you need to play a near perfect offensive game. You need to treat every possession like it is your last.
Yep.
But this is a good team to do it. And I think if they take away Stephen Shaw's shot and they force the Funky Monkeys to rely on an understaffed team with 3 men out there, and if they can take away Stephen Shaw as much as they can, where it's gonna take more Pat and AJ to contribute more than they're used to, they got a good shot at winning this. I'm still ultimately taking the Funky Monkeys. I think if you're a betting man, it would be smart to take the Funky Monkeys, but the Stampede aren't as out as people think they are. I hope people don't think they're out because I don't think they are. They just have to play above and beyond, and that's not out of reach for them, but it's going to be a good game. I'm really, really excited. So bring your lawn
Can't miss
chair,
action.
bring a cold pop. Um, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So anything else, Mike, you want to touch upon before we sign off?
I'll just give one final thought about the Stampede, and you kind of said something similar earlier, but the Stampede have 2 rookies. They have Costa, where going into the season, I don't think there is anymore, but going into the season, there were questions about Costa's devotion to the league. And then Dan obviously has always been devoted, but he's the 4th man. When that team started 0-3, it would have been so easy for them to quit or treat the league like a joke. Like they had never been a part of it before. The bottom seed misses the playoffs. That hasn't been a thing in a while. It would have been so easy for them to say, "Fuck this!" What are we doing here? And they just, regardless what happens tomorrow, they deserve so much credit for their resiliency and to win 4 in a or no, to win 8 in a row. I'm sorry, like that is
Yeah.
just incredible. And
And beating the
even
best.
even if Steven Shaw obliterates them tomorrow, which is obviously a possibility with Steven Shaw, so much they deserve all the credit in the world for not backing down,
Yeah.
especially considering they're rookies. Like that's crazy that they did that. So that's
Yeah.
really my final thought.
Yeah, I just before we sign off, I don't know if we'll do one more after this, and this may be our last episode. But thank you to everyone who's A, watched these podcasts, but B, who's participated in the league. Michael and I both agree it's been the best year ever.
Yep, no
Obviously
question.
with the numbers and the devotion, the participation, and also like the extraneous factors like the jerseys, and we've been live streaming on Instagram, but also doing the YouTube. We've done stats. So thank you for everyone who's been taking
Post quality.
stats, helping us out. And it's obviously been awesome. You know, if we're gonna get a bit sentimental here, Michael and I thought of this idea like 4 or 5 years ago in like an H block in high school, and it just started off as it was just like 16 guys. We all became good friends by the end of the year, and we wanted to keep it up. And now it's 32 guys. So if I'm a good mathematician, that's double, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We now
that's
got
correct.
32
Yeah,
people in the league, and we've had a lot of interaction with I know Connor Fu's a few friends out at Notre Dame who pay attention. So thank you guys so much. This has been awesome. I appreciate all of your participation, the ups, the downs, the lefts, and the rights. I wouldn't change it for the world. It's been awesome. Love to keep this going as long as we can, but we'll just end it right there. Good luck to both teams tomorrow.
of course.
And signing off.
Yep.